Hello and welcome to the Relevate community. Today we're going to hear from Luke Irwin about cybersecurity. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Avon. So what I'll do tonight, I'll take you through is in what is known in my parlance is the anatomy of a breach. Should I use any acronym or word that doesn't make sense or I haven't explained it, please just call it out so I can explain it. I normally have these sorts of conversations with my peers and the acronyms make sense to all of us, and it's not fair to assume that you guys know them as well. So when we look at a breach, there's a typical starting point and ending point. We'll actually go straight to the ending point first, and that is basically recovery. You've brought your systems back up, data has been restored, ransom may not have been paid, and you may or may not still have a functional business at that point. That's how it ends up. How it starts, the most common method nowadays is somebody clicking on a link. That is the most common method for an attack to initiate. What happens is this link will basically point to a website on the internet that contains hostile software, also called malware. And when you click on that link, or one of your staff members click on that link, depending upon the configuration of your systems, your computers, your everything, that may trigger that software. And in most cases, if it's ransomware, it probably will trigger. So what you can do to mitigate that, one of the best methods, make sure that your staff are educated. Teach them about how to recognize a bad link, how to recognize a hostile email. Take them through what the implications are. One of the challenges when educating staff in this space is they often don't understand the what's in it for me component. And the what's in it for them is they'll still have a job. That's not saying you're going to terminate them. It means that the business won't have gone under as a result of this, because it's not uncommon. So let's assume your staff member clicks on this link because they weren't thinking through it, they're in a rush. What will normally happen then is the computer will reach out to the internet, pull down a file, and then run that file. Now, depending upon the type, there's two broad classes here. There's one called remote access trojans, or a RAT, and there's another one just called ransomware. If we start with the RAT, what they've done is that will now provide an external attacker remote access to your computer without you knowing, or without your staff member knowing. What they will do then is start poking around the network, looking for data, looking for passwords, looking for credit cards. They'll try to exfiltrate that data off. Now, that will take they'll take all manner of things to do that, depending on how your network is and systems are configured. Depending on how you've structured, it might be very, very easy for an attacker to move between servers. There's a thing that's called lateral movement or lateral traversal, which is where they go from server A to server B to server C. And because of how things have been structured, there's no fences or gates for them to try and get around to get there. So on the assumption that's not there, they'll move between the servers, collecting and exfiltrating information back to their own what's called command and control server, or their own remote server. They'll then sit there for however long they want. It's referred to as dwell time. That is where the attacker is inside the network, but you don't know they're inside the network. And there's been cases where attackers have dwelled inside of a network for a couple of years. There's a few reasons why they do that. One, they get more access to data. Two, they can exfiltrate trade secrets, sell those trade secrets. It's really common for software and microchip manufacturing companies to be targeted, because they'll basically take the trade secrets, the patents, everything, and pass them off and sell them off to competitors. There have been a couple of reports of attackers staying in there for extended periods very quietly, looking for public releases around financial results. So then they can go and make an investment on the stock market to either short the stock or basically buy the stock knowing it's going to bump up. And this all happens covertly. You don't even know what's happening. Now, they're not playing with the sort of volume of money that's going to raise the attention of the regulators, but if they can go and turn a couple $100,000 into $1 million because they know that the stock price is going to go down, then it's low risk to them. So that's what happens with the dwell time. The dwell time also has another factor that I'll circle back to later when it comes to what's called the detonation event. Now, if we look at the other side, if they aren't getting remote control into your systems, let's assume it just triggers a ransomware attack. So I'm going to assume that not everyone has a great familiarity with ransomware, but there is a multitude of varieties. Like, they come in all the different flavors. It is a class of attack. It's like there are cars and there's Toyotas and Mitsubishis, but they fit into the wide group of being a car. Ransomware is the same thing. It's a very broad category. So what will happen is when your staff member clicks on that link and the software executes, it will start to encrypt the computer and encrypt the data. What they are trying to do is create fear and create difficulty for you to run your business. While it is doing that on that computer, it is going to try and reach out to other servers on the network, other devices on the network, and it will try and propagate itself basically onto every other device it can to lock down the entire environment. An example of a product or an attack that did this really well, it was structured to look like a ransomware, but it was actually a encryption wiper, was a product or an attack called WannaCry. Was released by the Russian intelligence service against Ukrainian industries in 2013, I think it was. Now, it did all the encryption, it broke the computers, and it asked pay $300 to get your data back. That didn't go anywhere. The data was encrypted and wiped. You weren't going to get it back. That was just to make you think it was ransomware. But generally with ransomware, it'll encrypt the data, and over the next few minutes, your computer will grind to a screaming halt and then present you a screen or make you reboot the computer or something similar, or even do it itself and bring up a screen saying you are now required to pay this to unlock your data. Now, that payment will generally be via Bitcoin or Monero, and it will typically be on a per device basis. That's not always a good thing. So this is the point where if you have cybersecurity insurance, ring your cybersecurity insurance provider. They are there to help with this. I cannot stress that enough. If you have insurance and you try and start remediating this yourself, your cyber insurance provider may not like that. So make sure you're speaking to them as your first point of contact when this happens. Let's say this attack has gone on. It's been detonated. You've got 100 staff in your organization and all of their computers have now been turned into very expensive paperweights. The servers will most likely be the same. And depending on how you've configured your backups, they may also be directly hit. There's a technique you need to use to do what's called offline backups. So it's backups that aren't connected to your environment at all. If they are connected, one of the most common methods is they'll get in there, destroy the backups, and you're stuffed. This happened to I got brought in to help with a firm after the fact last year. It did not go well because the attackers destroyed their backups in the process. Now, at this point, your devices are encrypted, your servers are encrypted, your backups are gone. Your choices are restart your business from nothing. Hope you have cybersecurity insurance that you can leverage to try and recover this and probably pay the ransom, because ransom payments are typically included in cybersecurity insurance. Or hope you have a backup that someone forgot about that are kept in an offline location. That last one is the least common. Now, you involve your cybersecurity insurance provider and they will activate what is called an incident response team. Now, these people aren't cheap. This is one of the reasons why you want insurance. Some of the rates I've seen floating around is $650 per hour. You need 2 of them, plus an incident manager at $900 an hour. You'll typically need them for about a week at 8 hours a day. I am not sure how much petty cash you have lying about, but I'm fairly certain it's not that much. This is one of the reasons why you want insurance. They will provide that as part of the policy. If you don't have insurance, let me know. I'll put you in touch with some good brokers. I do not get referrals from that because I'm not financially services licensed. But insurance, it matters. Get it. So the attack has gone through, the data's been encrypted, and you're now there standing there going, what do I do? How do I recover? We're going to assume that the incident response firm has been able to either recover some of the data, and that will give you a little bit of breathing room to work out, do we pay the ransom? Now, this is one of those scenarios where the business needs to have what is called a ransomware payment policy. Sounds really lightweight and really easy, and that's because it is. It's basically the business making an ethical decision of what they intend to do. Because the last thing you want when everything is hitting the fan, is been trying to make complex decisions in high stress situations, as I'm certain Avon and Kane can attest to. When everything hits the fan, you want to be following a process. And in this case, you want it to be telling you, we will do this, we won't do that. And that has to be based upon the risk to the business, the impact to your customers, the impact to everything else in your organization. If they can recover this data, on average, most businesses from that type of recovery, they don't get a lot back. If we're looking at the paying the ransom option, which is the other path that'll go down, out of all the cases gone through, it's roughly about 80% of cases when the ransom is paid, they are provided. Now, the key is basically the decryption key to unlock the data, the same way your front door key unlocks that. It unlocks it and makes it readable again. Problem being, the key will work about 80% of the times. So that means you've just paid the ransom and 20% of the time you get nothing. And this ransom is usually measured in the millions or tens of millions. So you've now only got some of the data back. Let's assume the key works, but if it doesn't, well, are we trusting criminals to have good customer service and good ethics to actually give you a working key? That's the next question you need to answer. But let's assume they've done the right thing and given you a key that works. You apply it. When you apply that, the average rate of return on the data coming back to the organization is only, I think the last stat came out at 72 or 73%. So that means you've still lost 27% of your organization's data permanently. It is gone. You may be able to reconstruct part of it out of emails and stuff like that, but that is going to be a very labor intensive and painful task. It is best assumed to be gone. And this is after you have paid your excess, the insurance company has paid the ransom, the incident response team has worked out how they got in and what they did, and you've now told your IT team what needs to be done to secure your organization properly. The best thing you can do is prevent it happening in the first place. Most organizations that get hit by a severe ransomware breach are typically out of business within 9 months. That's just the fact of how it is. Most firms cannot recover from it because the impact is too severe. So like Avon, let's say, for example, your business gets hit and we encrypted and destroyed everything, hard would it be for you to rebuild that, let alone looking at the implications of, do your customers want to trust you again? Because their data's gone, it's been destroyed. Like, yeah, that's the basics of the anatomy of an attack. How you can prevent it, as I said at the start, training. I cannot stress training enough. If you educate your staff on what to do and what to look for and how to respond, then you're in a good spot. There's a service provider I've been working with where I've audited their staff on how they are to respond to these types of things. And there was only, out of the entire organization, 3 people gave the right response. So it can't just be a once and done training. It is a do it again and do it again and do it again. So it becomes the habit, the pattern, the behavior that people know that when this happens, do this. This is how I respond. This is how I act. And you want to make sure the staff, as I said, know what to look for. The other thing you want to be looking at that is probably one of the best things you can do is what's referred to as immutable or offsite or offline backups. In the old technology, to be, say, sending a backup tape to an alternate location. Nowadays, you can digitally store it somewhere else. So if you push your data to a third-party site with a different account, you've now got immutable storage, or you've got storage offsite for your data. Also, patch your stuff. Keep everything up to date. Don't use default passwords. Use multi-factor authentication. Those are all things that will make your life easier. Does anyone have any questions? Have I terrified anyone?
Got one?
Everyone.
Go for it, Ross.
Go for it, Ross.
No, no.
You know, a lot of businesses have third-party softwares like Zoho, Nimble,
Yep.
CRMs, Xero, and things like
Yes.
that. How are those type of systems
Okay.
impacted?
I advocate for them strongly. Reason being is, so one, when you select that as a product, you need to conduct a risk assessment on the product. So when you look at the likes of, say, Zoho, they're going to have ISO 27001 and SOC 2. These are international security frameworks that they've been audited against. That indicates to you as the consumer that they are taking security seriously without having to go through, have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done that? Have you done that? The auditor's done that for you.
Yeah.
So the Zohos, the Salesforces, the Microsofts, they undergo regular security testing and auditing. They have all those other things in place so they can sell to their consumer. It is a better security posture running on a software as a service-based approach than trying to do it yourself on a server you keep in a cupboard down the hall, which I have seen listed companies do. They've literally had their core infrastructure in a closet next to the workshop, and that was running a $140 million listed company.
Wow.
It was terrifying.
Well, then you had Optus on really outdated, archaic code, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of legacy stuff to rebuild.
Yeah, legacy code's a very different beast as well. Like it's referred to as technical debt. Most of the banks still run on Fortran and COBOL, which is a programming language written in the 70s. It's an antique, but do you want to be responsible for screwing up a bank payment processing platform? So I know that's not a project I'd ever want to run. Any other questions?
Yeah, Luke, how's cyber insurance structured for like cost of the fees and that size of business turnover?
yeah.
How's it work?
It's generally scaled based upon turnover. Generally, I'll call out not financial advice, not an insurance broker, but typically it's based upon turnover and headcount of the organization as a matrix from what I've seen in the brokers that I work with. I would generally recommend going to a specialist cybersecurity broker over a general business broker who also sells cybersecurity, because the specialist security broker understands the risks and the profiles and how they work. That's like going, sure, your GP could do heart surgery if they have to, but I'd much rather speak to a heart surgeon.
Well, I've got one last question. Is it still malware if the software developer's name was Malcolm?
Dad joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was Googling computer jokes and that was the best one I could come up with. All right. Well, thank you so much. Sorry, we got another question. Yes.
Yeah. Just with the things like Dropbox and 365, whatever,
Yeah.
where does that stand in that? Is that the same?
That is a much more difficult question. So Dropbox and OneDrive are generally quite secure products. The problem with both of them is most organizations tend to not manage the access controls in there. Like someone leaves, they don't update it, or someone changes roles, they don't change the permissions associated with it. That's a really common problem. It's called access creep. The problem that comes with both Dropbox and OneDrive is they are common targets for scammers. So it's not uncommon to get an email going, click here to log into your Dropbox. You've just been sent a secure file via OneDrive. Please click on this link and put in your credentials to log into it. Well, because the products are so widely used and because they're so successful, they're now a target for the attackers to use as an ingress point into the network. So if you were to type your details in, you've now given away your credentials to a hostile third party. This is why I say you also want multi-factor authentication on those accounts. So you get a prompt on your phone. The other thing you can do with them is turn on geo-blocking. So if you go outside of Australia, no, you can't log into it. They are good products. You just need to be aware they're a target for scammers.
All right.
Thank you.
We might have to call it there. Thank you so much. That's been fantastic. So that was the anatomy of a cyber attack by Luke Irwin. Thank you very much.
Very high level.
Well, we don't have 8 years of study to
Yeah.
go through this. So yes, very, very high
Happy to
level.
help.
That's excellent. All right.